The Galactic Council had explicit protocols about human interaction with Vrexian young. Protocol 847C stated clearly, under no circumstances should human personnel approach Vrexian offspring without full protective gear and authorized supervision. Arya had read the protocol. She'd even signed the acknowledgement form. She simply hadn't expected two Vrexian cubs to show up in her quarters at 300 hours, curled against her pillow like oversized house cats. "This is impossible," she whispered, frozen in her doorway. The station's dim night cycle lighting cast shadows across her small cabin, but there was no mistaking the two sleek, scaled forms nested in her bedding. Their crystalline claws, each capable of shearing through reinforced hull plating, were retracted. Their triple rows of serrated teeth were hidden behind closed jaws. And most impossibly of all, a deep, resonant purring filled the room. Vrexians didn't purr. They were apex predators from a death world where evolution had crafted them into living weapons. They conquered 17 star systems before the Galactic Council managed a peace treaty. Their young were supposedly more dangerous than the adults, all instinct, no restraint, and two of them were sleeping in her bed. Arya's communicator buzzed. She jumped, fumbling it from her belt. "Yes?" "Arya." Caspian's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Have you seen two Vrexian cubs? Ambassador Threxcal is having a complete meltdown. Apparently his offspring escaped their secure den and they're in my quarters." Silence. "Caspian, don't move." His words came slowly, carefully. "I'm alerting security. Protocol demands..." They're purring. Another silence. Longer this time. "That's... Arya, Vrexians don't purr. You might be experiencing auditory hallucinations from fear toxins. Their young can emit..." "I'm looking right at them. They're asleep, and they're definitely purring." She took a cautious step into her cabin. Neither cub stirred. "They look peaceful." "Peaceful," Caspian repeated flatly. "The ambassador's offspring, each worth more than this entire station in potential diplomatic incidents, broke out of a den lined with adaptive neural barriers, somehow navigated 17 decks, and decided to nap with you. And they look peaceful." Arya couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips. "When you say it like that, it does sound weird." "Arya, just come here, alone. No security team, no ambassador." "Not yet." She could practically hear him thinking, weighing protocols against curiosity. Caspian had been the station's xenobiology specialist for 3 years. His entire career revolved around understanding alien species. 5 minutes. If anything changes, anything, you run. The cubs didn't move when Arya sat carefully on the edge of her bed. Up close, she could see their scales shifting color with each breath, from deep violet to soft blue. Their purring changed pitch slightly as she settled nearby, becoming almost content. One cub, the slightly larger one, cracked open an eye. 3 pupils contracted independently, focusing on her. Arya held her breath. The cub yawned, displaying enough teeth to make a shark jealous, then nuzzled deeper into her pillow. When Caspian arrived, he stood in the doorway exactly as Arya had, mouth open in disbelief. "How?" "I don't know." Arya gestured helplessly. "I came back from my shift and they were already here." Caspian pulled out his scanner, keeping his distance. "Bio readings are normal. No stress markers, no elevated aggression hormones." He looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers. "Arya, they're registering as completely calm. According to this, they're calmer than they would be with their own parent." "That can't be right." "I'm running the scan 3 times. Same results." He moved closer, his scientific curiosity apparently overriding his survival instinct. "There's something else. See how their scales are cycling through blue tones? That's a color range Vrexians only display around their bonded family units." Arya stared at the cubs. They think I'm family? It's the only explanation. But it shouldn't be possible. Vrexians imprint at birth on their parents' chemical signature. There's no mechanism for secondary bonding, especially not with an alien species, especially not with a... He stopped. Human, Arya finished. You can say it. Everyone knows humans are considered too soft for most apex species to even acknowledge. Caspian sat on the floor, his scanner forgotten in his lap. Do you remember last week, when Ambassador Threxkal brought his offspring to the observation deck? The cubs were fighting. The ambassador was concerned they were becoming too aggressive. Arya remembered the display. Two young Vrexians locked in what looked like genuine combat. The other species had evacuated the deck. I didn't leave. You sat next to them. I grew up with brothers. Fighting is how some species play. She'd watched the cubs tumble and strike, noting the pulled punches, the way they avoided each other's vulnerable spots. I told the ambassador they were just establishing boundaries, that it was healthy. And you sat between them. You put your hand on the larger one's head. Arya had forgotten that part. The cub had frozen under her touch, and she'd worried she'd made a terrible mistake. But then it had leaned into her palm, and its sibling had stopped mid-lunge to investigate this strange human who didn't fear them. The ambassador thanked me, she said quietly. He said I understood his children better than most of the council. You showed them respect without fear. You treated them like people, not monsters. Caspian gestured to the sleeping cubs. Apparently, they remember. A chime sounded, the ambassador requesting entry to Arya's quarters. Caspian moved to the door, speaking quietly with Threxkal through the comm. Arya couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw Caspian step aside. Ambassador Threxkal was massive, easily 3 meters tall, his scales a deep crimson that spoke of his warrior lineage. He stopped inside the doorway, his 4 eyes widening at the sight of his offspring. I apologize, he began, his voice a deep rumble that Arya's translator rendered as formal and stiff. They have never... This is unprecedented. They're welcome here, Arya said simply. Threxkal's scales shifted to show surprise, a brief flash of yellow. You welcome them? They trust me. I trust them. She looked at the sleeping cubs. Isn't that what families do? The ambassador was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a warmth that the translator couldn't quite capture. On my world, there is a saying. The strongest pack includes the most unexpected hunters. My offspring have chosen well. I don't understand. Vrexians imprint twice in their lives, once at birth to parent, once at maturity to pack. His scales shimmered with something that might have been pride. My children are young, but their instincts are old. They have chosen you as pack, as family. Caspian leaned against the wall, a grin spreading across his face. The council is going to have a fit. The council, Threxkal said, his tone dismissive, has never understood that predators recognize strength in all its forms. My people have conquered worlds, but we have never learned what this human knows instinctively, that the fiercest loyalty comes not from fear, but from understanding. Arya looked down at the cubs, still purring against her pillow. One had draped a paw over the edge, claws retracted, completely vulnerable, completely trusting. Can they stay? She asked. Just for tonight? Threxkal's laugh was like distant thunder. Human Arya, they refused their den, the finest accommodations on this station, to sleep beside your pillow. I do not think I could remove them if I tried. He moved to the door, pausing. I will inform the council that my offspring are exactly where they need to be, where they have chosen to be. After the ambassador left, Caspian lingered. You know this changes everything, right? The first human to be chosen by Vrexian cubs. There'll be studies, reports, probably a documentary. Arya kicked off her boots and carefully slid under the covers, mindful of the sleeping cubs. They shifted, adjusting to make room for her, and the larger one draped its tail across her legs. Right now I'm just tired. Arya? Yeah? For what it's worth? I think they chose right. Caspian smiled. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. Those two wake up hungry. As he left and the door sealed, Arya closed her eyes, lulled by the dual purring that vibrated through her small cabin. Tomorrow would bring complications, protocols, and probably a dozen xenobiologists wanting to study this unprecedented bond. But tonight, 2 predator cubs had refused their den and chosen her pillow instead, and that was enough.